Bonjour. No.
Yeah, you killed that.
Yeah. We're here to talk about uh, Le Fantasia Weekend du Cinéma Québécois, better known as Fantasia Film Fest. He's Shay and I'm Brandon from Screen Love Affair, and we got to check out the closing weekend of the festival together. Shay's a trooper and got the entire 2.5, 3 week
It's
experience
almost
almost.
3 weeks. Yeah.
Yeah, so I fortunately only got the closing weekend. I should say fortunately. I wish I could have seen more, but after doing four screenings in one day of our weekend, I was worse for wear. So my hat's off literally today to you for that. But we saw
Only the flowing mullet now.
just the mullet. Mullet takes a plenty ahead. But yeah, so like we saw I think six films in the last two-ish days of being
Yeah,
there.
pretty much.
So you want to talk about the first one we saw chronologically, which would have been A Safe Distance.
Yeah, this episode is not sponsored by Letterboxd, but we're going to be referencing them frequently to help keep us on track here. So together, we kicked off our Fantasia coverage together with A Safe Distance. That was our first one. Canadian film. I was mid on it overall. There was some parts of it that I thought were really great, really effective. We're going to keep all this, of course, spoiler free because these are all movies no one else has been able to see yet. So you might be able to see these later when they come out. So we'll keep things kind of light as we move our way through. But yeah, A Safe Distance to me, it was advertised, I feel like, as a thriller. Like they were like, it's more tense and whatever. And that's gone almost instantly. And that was, I think,
Yeah.
my biggest knock on the film. The setup, which I think we can be comfortable giving, is that this couple goes out into the woods hiking, and the boyfriend abandons the girlfriend and she is stuck in the woods alone. But that setup is a lie. So that is undone within 3 minutes
Yeah.
of like screen time of her being alone. Like they jump over like a chunk of time there, but like it's effectively done and the movie pivots to her. And it's a lot of other things going on. That's probably where
I
I'll
think I
stop
think
on
the
the
actual synopsis
description.
on Letterboxd says after a failed proposal, the man abandons her in the woods
Mhm.
alone. And everything you said is pretty factual, but I had that vibe or that feeling because it was a thriller about a woman lost in the woods. I was expecting it to be kind of similar to the original Strangers, where like that whole movie is like a couple comes home from a failed proposal to a romantic house, and it's not romantic. The vibe's terrible. They got to be together, and then the strangers show up. So I was kind of expecting something more along that lines, not something so graphic. But instead, it's almost more of like a meditation on like
It
romance
was
and
like a
love.
personal
It's more of a personal story.
drama.
I would say again, spoiler free. I thought it was pretty shot well. Casted pretty well. I feel like we've seen
Mhm.
some movies in the last week where we're like, the acting was the worst part, and I can't say that about this movie.
No.
It's very Canadian. It takes place in BC. It talks about how these couples are from, Alberta, Edmonton. They head east to, the East
Yeah, they're
Coast.
like, we're going to Winnipeg, and then we'll
Yeah,
be in
96 more
Nova
hours.
Scotia,
Yeah.
and all the Canadian plastic money.
Oh, and
You don't get that.
yeah, and that was kind of one of those things too. Is like the term for a movie that you can't tell the time period in, and that was a gripe with it. I don't want to give spoilers away, but and I'm not. But yeah, when you see the Monopoly money we have, that's all plastic.
Yeah.
You know it's contemporary. There was a surprise lack of cell phones that, if you're a keen-eyed viewer, that might bother you too. But I think if you're there for the ride and the vibe of it, it is a pretty good time. I was kind of mid on it, but again, talking about the setup and why you should go see it. Shay looked at me, told me the premise, and I immediately was like, "Oh, an Alpine divorce, where a guy bans his girlfriend on a hike, and she doesn't make it back to society."
Why are you so giddy about it?
Well, because I told my girlfriend
I
about
love
it.
Alpine
I
divorce.
told my girlfriend about it, and she immediately said, "Oh, it's like an Alpine divorce. I read all about those on TikTok. I read all about those on TikTok." And so her and I both were like, "Oh, this is a movie we probably would have sought out outside of Fantasia, because of that kind of setup and that kind of social horror there of like what happens when your long-term relationship doesn't say yes, and now you have an awkward hike down the mountain." Again, that's maybe the setup in the opening scene. But without giving more away from it, there's a lot more going on than
Yeah.
just that. By a lot more, I mean a bit more, but it's
Well,
not
it's
in that direction.
completely different. Like
Completely.
like that becomes not at all the focus. It's more of again on the like a single individual character mostly. And I will say to keep again zero spoilers. Ending didn't totally work for me either, and I thought the narrative setup of the
From the
movie.
start of the movie, you mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
they do the whole like we're gonna start at the end and then work our
Work
way
your way
back
back.
around, and that just never really like it. Yeah, I just didn't buy it. It was like it's a device. Obviously, they use and it's kind of like a hook because we hear something. It's the opener. I'm not like we hear something. There's clearly some stuff has happened. These two characters are together, so like what happened? And it does, I guess you could say like
Subvert a little bit.
not really, because I felt fairly confident that that was
Our
going to
tongue,
come back
our
around.
tongues are bleeding. We really try.
Yeah, I'm like
Yeah.
trying really hard because if we feel like we want to cover it when it comes
Yeah.
out, but yeah, I think really it just was like I'm getting a little annoyed with these the more I see them because they're
Yeah.
not really done to great effect.
Yeah.
And it really like this one was one of the more egregious ones because then when we do jump, it then just ends. So I was like, oh, like
Yeah, there
I
was
thought there would be that extra 5 minutes even to
even
really flesh
one
that out.
shot could have really
Yeah.
inverted some of the buildup of
Yeah.
it. But yeah, honestly, we're talking very critically. But I would say if an Alpine divorce sounds like a great premise to you, or if you're maybe in a turbulent relationship with a person you don't think you're going to be with, this might be a good one. This might be good for you. But otherwise, I wouldn't rate it super high. I would try to compare it to other movies to give viewers an understanding. I'd say it almost somewhat feels a little bit more like Love Lies Bleeding, when the Kristen
Oh, I like
Stewart.
that so much
Yeah, well,
more.
that's a lot more of a like movie with like big stuff going on. But as far as like subject matter, I think it's kind of close to that. As far as the crime thriller elements that are somewhat hinted at with the thriller title.
I would say don't go in expecting a thriller at all. There was nothing really suspenseful. Even when the movie tries to turn serious, it didn't feel that way to me. Like, and this is where I bump up against a little bit of the performance, but also the script that called for the changes in characters at those times. Like, it just didn't, it never sold to me. Like, I never once felt like nervous or anxious for the characters. Like
Yeah,
it all just it didn't work as well for me. But again, like there I felt like the shots, it was well shot for sure.
a good
and
vibe.
and there was like its conflicts within the movie itself because there were moments like honestly the introspective stuff, and they said at the head of the screening that it was steamy, and I thought those moments were effective
Steamy moments for sure.
and like as particularly for the main character, like it made more like of that arc more fleshed out. But then when it tries to dabble in the thriller, I guess, angles, did not work for me at all. And so
Yeah.
that's where I would say again, even like the Alpine divorce thing, that's purely just a like plot setup to put a character in a particular position. It
Yeah.
really isn't the movie. Like I went in.
It almost would have been more what I was wanting if it was like a woman being completely stranded after like a super douche
Yeah.
had like set her out to dry, and like the movie Revenge. Woman left alone, beaten to death in the desert, has to come back and get revenge. I thought it might be more like that, but again, without giving away actual details of it, it definitely was not an Alpine divorce, more like an Alpine misunderstanding that led to a series of events with an element of crime thriller, but it's not that thrilling. So
Yeah.
definitely, you might not get what you expect off the synopsis, but I would recommend it very casually, but not very enthusiastically, I guess. All right.
I don't know what to make of a recommendation like that.
There's worse you could watch.
That's true.
Speaking of that,
No, I disagree. See, here we go, some conflict. The next movie we saw the same day was Teenage Sex and Death at Camp Miasma. And I think by and large, I think in effect we feel similarly about this, but I think I'm higher on the movie. I feel almost the exact same way about this as I saw the TV Glow, which was Jane Schoenbrun's last film, which was that I liked it stylistically. I thought it was really good. Performances, like I love pretty much everything about this movie
A big creative swing.
outside of the fact that emotionally or otherwise, the story had no impact on me whatsoever. And once again, I struggled to find my way into the material. And so it was like a very nice movie to look at, and like it wasn't that I was bored necessarily, like I never really fell off. I just didn't find that emotional or like personal way in. And now like I'm, like we could debate like how much of that is on me, how much of it is
Yeah.
on the movie. I know it's having the, like, well, for example, I was going to say there's people that do get this more. If you read our written review that Adriana wrote, she got to see this at the premiere. She liked it way more than both of us. It's still going to get a like from me because I enjoyed it enough that I think it's definitely worthwhile. And if you do get that extra kind of kick that I was missing from this film, I think you will like it a lot more. But for me, I just was like, yeah, that was one of the best looking things I've seen. And I love the style. And like there was more I wanted out of it, but it was like all unrelated to, I think, the core story in the film.
Yeah.
I was very intrigued by all of the setup around the Miasma horror franchise and like the parodies of that. And,
the inside baseball, the compared to like Friday the 13th.
yeah,
And
so that was where I wanted more, but that wasn't what the movie was. So like, yeah, I was in conflict.
this wouldn't be a podcast if I didn't double speak on the last review I gave, where I said the vibes were good in the Alpine Divorce movie. Like it was a good, cozy watch. This movie is a vibes movie, in that sense, where watching it is a bit of a ride, where it's just like you're enjoying what's on screen most of the time. But again, narratively, yeah, I couldn't find my way in, which kind of caused me to retroactively stop engaging with some stuff in it. There's some cool effects and like technical aspects of this movie I think were really solid. But one thing I would say, and I've said this since the Scream of this year, was that I'm very tired of like stuff being like overwhelmingly meta, and like that's like one of the big points of this movie. And I find it's like Scream's a good example of that. By the seventh movie in the franchise, where it's like the humor being referenced to knowing how horror movies work, and that's so much of what makes this movie work. That was a mild thing that took me, like I started liking it, then I stopped engaging with it. But technically speaking, a lot of cool effects. They do a lot of cool backdrops that are like illogical. Like they'll just be backdrops when there wouldn't be. Felt almost like
I
Police
love
Detective.
those.
I love those too.
Like they were like matte paintings.
Matte
at the
paintings,
back.
yeah. And there'd be scenes where someone's walking through the woods and it goes from the real woods to a matte painting, and the scene transitions. It was like excellent filmmaking, much like I saw the TV Glow, where I was like, the trailer made me go, I'm gonna love this, and then I sat through it and I was just like, I didn't find my way in. But again, it could be more on me. But yeah, I think visually very neat, very big swing, some cool effects, a cool kind of world and story that is at the center of it. Is just the actual narrative of the movie I didn't find a way to attach. The best way to summarize this, maybe to end this part of my review of this, is I said, if you ever have a weird orgasm that you're trying to explain, don't ruin your career doing so. So that's my Miasma review.
Yeah, I guess because to set up, and I would encourage you to read Adriana's review to get the counterpoint of the two meatheads.
A much better review than this.
It was a great review too. I love her reviews, but the thing for me was I was like, wait, so was the whole thing ultimately about how hard it is for some people to have an orgasm? And it turns out I read in Adriana's review that was kind of part of the point of the film. So that's what I mean.
We might not have that same.
Yeah. We don't have the same lived experience there. So I think
mullet take, men orgasm really easily. I don't know. I don't know who would have ever thought that.
Yeah, definitely not a problem for us. However, what I will say, I disagree. I disagree with. I don't think the inside baseball meta-ness of this was too like it didn't ever feel like the movie was winking at us, but it does feel like the movie setup is that she is remaking the Camp Miasma, doing a new remake of this, like, basically Friday the 13th. And so the director is aware of those things, and the movie is contemporary. So it makes comments of like, see the origin story for, what was the
Psycho,
Little Death.
Oh,
that was the
you
origin story for
remade
Little Death
Psycho from the perspective of the shower curtain, and then the main character, when you said they're not winking at us, I'm like, they're not winking because they're going. expositing dialogue. Like, isn't that funny? I just found it was like, especially when she's being like, yeah, just make it woke and stuff. And then the whole time she's like, the character who's like, not that like bare bones is also now almost being like, a symptom of that like black and white mentality where she's like, yeah, I'm just gonna remake this with my queer perspective. That's what Hollywood really likes, but I want to gamify the system. And you can tell the actress who plays the older actor in this, who's been around, who's been part of like the older Hollywood system, is kind of like not having it. I like that dynamic a lot. I thought they played well off each other.
Well, but I don't think that's meta when it's just acknowledging the reality, because it was
Yeah.
like that's like her whole point there was that like there was people consider the original film transphobic and problematic today, and so then they hire me because I'm queer, and then that can overshadow the fact that it's true, which is like true. That's like
That's how
a
it goes.
Hollywood thing to like
There's a point in this when
clarify.
some executives maybe meet a demise, and people in the audience were, to be fair, Fantasia crowd was applauding, and like again, we said they weren't winking. I'm like, I'm pretty sure they were, because there's people in the audience with us winking back, like we get the joke, we're in on it. And to me, it was starting to feel like low hanging fruit, I guess, over time. And like I'm all for it. Low hanging fruit does make the sweetest wine, but I just, because I didn't find my way in, I was having a hard time like enthusiastically being like, oh yeah, that's so smart. I was like, that's kind of what I'm expecting based on what I've seen so far. So I thought it was a great vibe. I thought there's some great performances in it. I just, yeah, again, like the
So
orgasm.
where do you fall on the Hardometer for this?
uh
I was a like.
I would say plus mid. I think like technically very strong, but and it's better than a lot of movies as far as visual goes. I just uh we saw there's another movie we'll talk about where I'll say is the opposite, where the story I didn't find a way in, but the vibe and the character got me into it.
Mhm.
And with this, it was like the story felt like it was stuck. Like 'cause literally, it's about a director trying to figure out how she's going to direct a film, which is one of the things I said about film festivals. Whenever there's a character trying to make a movie in the movie, and they're talking about making movies, that as somebody who works in movies and is a big movie guy, obviously, it becomes like, this is supposed to be for me, and I'm starting to disengage. It's probably a me thing. It's probably a me thing. Maybe I can't achieve cinematic orgasm with this one, and I'm having a hard time explaining.
Well, no, like again, I think it was just the difference in what like work. Like we feel essentially the same about it. It just worked for me slightly more than it
Yeah.
worked for you.
If you're just at a like, I'm just below a like.
Yeah,
Like
and
if you're a B, I'm a B minus.
I think the thing with these movies, and this is like this could be a we will a conversation for another day too, but ultimately I think about always that like Roger Ebert bit about movies where it's like, oh, they're empathy machines and you can like teach an experience, and I feel like the gap with both this and I Saw the TV Glow is that it doesn't do a good enough job, in my opinion and my experience, creating the empathy for someone that doesn't already understand those feelings that the characters
Yeah.
are they're there. And it seems like, at least in a lot of the positive reviews that I have read, that people that can more or less relate to some of the material love these movies. And I like, again, it's not that you have to make movies for me. I'm not saying that at all. But it is more in the vein of like, can you find a way to just tell the same stories, but like again, in the same way, like Pillion, not my world at all.
But I love Pillion.
And I was on drugs. But that
I was sober and I related so much.
right. But like, yes, like there are cases where like you can make me like not obviously understand and like as if I lived it, but feel the way that you want, like that I can relate and understand and like connect with that feeling. And these two movies I just never did. And I think that it's not a criticism, I guess, but it's just like that's one thing I've found now with two of these movies in a row where it feels like I just haven't been able to connect, and maybe it's just because it hasn't been that effective. But again, for the people that these movies are like made for and that are experiencing that, it seems like that both of them are really big hits that way. So, take that with a grain of salt too.
Well, it's gonna sound like a mullet take. Please bear with me. But when you're talking about the empathy machine, they do set up and show us footage from like I'm assuming like late 70s, 80s, old Can Miasma franchise during the movie, kind of like showing us, there's the point where she goes, oh, this part's transphobic. And there is an element to that where people are talking about somebody who is non-binary in a less than flattering way. But I felt like, if they wanted me to empathize more, or feel like there was a lot more like discomfort from that. I feel like they were holding back. There's like that scene I'm talking about in particular, which again, I'm not giving too much away here. It's like an old flashback showing like, you know, the 70s film. Someone's holding like a 2000 HD camcorder. And that took me out a lot. But in that same scene, they're saying a freak show. And I feel like they meant to say the other F word. And I think that could have been impactful for at least one drop of it to make it feel extra hateful and why she's trying to correct it. And won't give me that grit of like why she's trying to right these wrongs. Because it felt like more of an early 2000s offense and not like true, genuine hate and disdain. I didn't feel like when they point those parts out, it was that bad. Because they also had a character in those scenes that was like a little androgynous and like a part of the cool kids club. And I was like, I feel like the line's a little too blurred here. They should have been a little bit more black and white to sell me.
Well, but see that? No, I disagree with you completely.
Okay.
I think that's like, I don't think that's in the ballpark. Like that's such a minor aspect of the movie. Like I think the point of that whole sequence was, again, they weren't particularly hateful. It was just sort of that what I kind of
Like
attribute.
ignorance, I guess?
Well, that's what I mean. Yes, I think that's exactly it. Because
But in the 70s,
no-
they wouldn't say freak show. They would say, I mean, I just felt
no,
like
they
it
like. I
wasn't-
think that would have been fine because like that's the whole thing. Like because it imbues. There's difference between hate and ignorance.
Right, but it was tonally, I felt like those were goofier, you know what I mean? Like, because it felt like it passed by today's standards a lot more. Like, it was like they're winking at us, like, see, this is mildly transphobic, like for now's times. But back then in the 70s version, it would have been a lot worse. And I just think that could have been an opportunity
Well,
to make people understand why they need to.
dude, I'm the woke one on the podcast.
Yeah, why? Well, yeah, why
No,
why they need to
don't-
update
I
it, make it
don't-
more.
No, I didn't interpret it that way. I think like for me,
I saw it as a missed opportunity to let us in on.
I would have been more annoyed if they did what you did.
Interesting.
Because to me,
What I
that's
wanted, not what I did.
yeah,
Relax.
what you would have said. No. I just think because again, to me, the heavy-handedness of what you're talking about is the part that would have made me roll my eyes. Because to
Right.
me, the kind of things that the movie I thought was a little bit more tactful about, particularly with that, and why I like that moment more, is that it wasn't just this hatred that's just like I feel like more lazily done in a lot of contemporary things
Sure.
where all like bigotry, and again, like lots of it has been, it's not that you can't do that, but it then feels too heavy handed in film. So for this one to be born more out of ignorance and like not understanding, and it's just like weird, then at the time, like that made more sense. And like I feel like it also, like, again, such a minor part of the movie too, but I
Yeah,
feel like
compared-
I thought that was actually better than I was expecting when they were leading up to that. Because again, they say like, "Oh, they hired me," and then we get the flashback, or yeah, I guess flashback, but of the movie.
Old sequence.
Yeah, which I liked and stuff too. Like again, all of those parts I thought really worked. I want to double watch because I don't remember the camcorder bit that you were talking about.
Oh,
all.
at least twice. I think
But you were very adamant about it at the time, so I'll have to go back and check
because
it out.
also in those
Because they make it
scenes-
very clear it's like an old like
I
80s.
also like to, while we're nitpicking, like when they do show the 70s footage, I think tonally I was so brought out too, because I felt like for the quality and effort and like vibe they put into this for the technical excellence, when they're showing the 70s movie, I felt like this was and I mean this like pause, not, no, a criticism. It was shot like a normal movie. They just filtered over top of. There was like no locked off camera. A lot of it was like normal, like streaming
Yeah,
show
it didn't
footage.
have the
And then when they get to a big kill scene that was really epic, honestly, it was like a James Gunn, very digital, flashy scene with a filter over the top of it. And I just, part of me wanted it to feel like I was watching an actual 1980s, like Texas or 70s Chainsaw Massacre style.
they even shoot it like X. Or
Yeah,
something.
like X is a great example where when there's footage in that to evoke like really old school stuff, it felt pretty grounded. We're here because it's relying on rebooting this franchise. Again, I was saying structurally, narratively, it felt like it wasn't as true to the time, but also filming it felt so ethereal and like not how it would have been shot. It would have been locked off. It would have been kind of rougher filmmaking, but it was almost so well done. And the audio was also very crisp.
Mhm,
And I think for a movie that is so well done on vibes,
mhm.
they could have injected a little bit more trust of the audience to know that we're watching this older movie, but it felt like they didn't want to stray too far on the quality or the effect. Yeah, this is a nitpick, but I think because I didn't find my way in narratively,
You're
I was
noticing those things
noticing
more
stuff like
often.
the camcorder feeling like way too modern for that flashback, maybe like the characters being a little off for that time that I would have expected. But then most importantly, the ability to show the old footage and it feels like you're just watching a streaming show that has a flicker Super
Yeah.
35 effect on it. I felt like the talent scene from this director could have had a little bit more of a analog feeling to those scenes. Again, it's a nitpick, but I think just from a visual guy who loves the visuals of this, that was the part that let me down. And then when I didn't narratively find my way in, I was like, well, okay, I just think this missed for me, even though it was a really big swing. So check it out, but I just wasn't my movie specifically.
What a hater. No, no, I was gonna say, just to piggyback off that quickly, there was some practical, but I felt like it was more
A
digital than
lot of
practical
digital, and then
on like the gore and like killing parts of the film, which like I again really disappointing because it does look bad. And when there's other examples within the same movie of the effect, like impractical, like it's like you could have done it, it would have been there, but when it did do the digital stuff, it didn't work for me. But that was like the only kind of like visual thing that kind of bothered me
especially
on
when
that
they
side.
do a much better job showing the violence when that happens in like the contemporary part of the movie.
Yeah.
When arrows are flying into chests and stuff. When they do again, I felt like a James Gunn or like a POV kind of shot during that, like, which you wouldn't even have the technology to do it that well in that 70s version, where it was like the camera's following the
Well, that was
killer.
sort of a gimmick in the whole first Friday. It was a lot of the
Yeah.
kills are all
Well,
POV
they're POV,
shots.
but no, I mean, I'm saying the scene where it's like a chest-mounted camera while our miasma killer
Yeah.
is going through the room just bodying everybody, but we
Yeah.
don't actually see people getting
Little death.
bodied all that much. Yeah, little death. The times we're doing this POV are cool, and they do like the whole thing with the blood hits the camera. Like, it was fun. It was a fun time, but I just think again, like, while I was not finding my way in, and then not finding the technical consistency to hold up for what I thought they were trying to evoke. It is super nitpicky, but I wouldn't be surprised if more critical people also got that feeling. But I think if you liked I Saw the TV Glow, you're going to love this. If you didn't love I Saw the TV Glow, you might like aspects of this, because that's kind of where I felt.
Yeah.
Without giving away everything, I think that's probably the best place to leave that at.
Well, so now we're moving on to our big day with 4 Fantasia movies to close out the festival. And we're kicking off with the first movie we saw that day was The Peril at Pincer Point. Great title.
I love P alliteration, baby.
I liked this one. This was one a little like there was it wasn't the world premiere. I think it was the Canadian premiere. But a lot of like early positive reviews for this, so I was excited to see it. I knew very little. Like I didn't remember at all. I just knew it was black and white and was something to do with pirates or something. So I was like, "Oh, okay, I'm in." And
The same reasons I was like, this, I don't think I'm gonna like this.
yeah.
And when the opening setup, and to give you the summary of it, is about a sound recordist for a movie is sent to Pincer Point to record a once in a lifetime generational sound to please the director, and has a crazy journey. I got that, and I was also like, oh, I'm also not gonna like this black and white movie of people making movies. I'm gonna hate this. And then by
I
the
think
end of the
she
movie,
said a micro budget at the beginning.
she
of
kept,
it.
yeah, she's like a
Oh,
micro
no.
budget. So I was like, here we go. I was teed up to dislike it, but I left that being like, that was one of my favorites we've seen this whole weekend.
Which back to if you
Yeah.
watched our Ice Cream Man episode, that was the one we talked about.
Yeah.
I thought he hated the movie. When we were sitting there, I would like look to him at moments I liked, and he would just be like staring flat up at the theater. And then I was like, so I asked him, thinking I hated that. And he's like, I love that. But yes, for anyone that's been a long time follower of the show, if Brandon can relate to your movie, he's gonna love the shit out of it. And this was definitely a case of that.
There's no divorce in this movie, so that's a big swing.
Yeah.
No bad relationships, that's also a big swing.
Yeah.
Just a movie about a guy willing to die for his job making a great movie.
Yeah, doing whatever it takes.
Yes.
And I think back to the micro budget of this, I loved how this looked.
Yeah, you couldn't
Like
tell from a
it
lot of
was following in the same vein, like following Camp Miasma up with this. A lot of like matte painting backdrops and like things like that like all looked phenomenal.
Simple and effective.
Yeah,
and,
sets, locations, whatever.
Atmosphere was 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
If you like Widow's Bay, like a story about a creepy sea shanty town, this hits those
Keep
markers.
spoilers late. That's on my
Yeah. So, but yeah, the whole thing with this was Yeah, probably 30 minutes in. Also, part of it too was the setup felt exactly what I was expecting: slow, black and white,
Hmm.
pensive, thought-provoking, micro budget. And then the first few lines of dialogue were like so good and fast and like well acted. And then they
Yeah.
go to the studio and the way that they're talking to each other, from familiar bro like to like throwing on a bus
Cutting.
to
Yeah,
cutting.
yeah.
And I was just like, oh my gosh, what great like conversations that I thought was gonna be a slow, pensive movie. The conversations were like lightning. Um, and at points too, when they go to this small shanty town, it felt like I was watching a Canadian icon show, Letterkenny. Just the way these guys out in the middle of nowhere are talking, and they have these weird mannerisms and the way
It's
they.
British, by the way, too. It's the
Yes,
British Letterkenny. And I don't want people thinking that
yeah, it's not a
going in
Canadian movie.
and you get to like Nova Scotia
Yeah, yeah.
or Newfoundland and you can't understand a word anybody's
But yeah,
saying.
no, the setting was great. The practical effects for the crabs in this. She said at the start when she was teeing us
Yeah.
up, she's like, "If you like crabs, you might like this movie." Got a few chuckles, but yeah, no, it's fun. It's cute. It's lighthearted, but it's like serious. Our protagonist is a great window into this absurd world, and it stays tonally consistent, even though it's balancing a few tones of like a very heavy-handed like folklore and skepticism and damnation to this like cynical like a Hollywood feeling of like you got to please the director, you got to die for this project,
Yeah.
and then even the
Our
way it
main
wraps
character's
up
like,
really hit for me.
I'm in the industry.
Yeah, I'm in the industry. The best line that made me laugh so hard, it was those two town guys where they're like, what's he wearing? He's like, I thought he was wearing all the jeans. There's no jeans left. He's like, jeans are in style right now, the double denim he was wearing.
Yeah.
And that, like, and the movie takes place in, it's in the ending, I don't want to spoil why, in like 2001, 2002.
Yeah.
And again, even the guy recording audio files and sending it on thumb drives in the mail, because I'm like, yeah, I guess there's an internet or satellite in this town, like he would be physically sending thumb drives. So it's a good time period and it's against all black and white. So it helps with that retro feeling. Even the movie they're making feels like it's like a 1950s, 60s, like Godzilla type B movie almost.
Mhm.
So yeah, the time in it feels very weird, but when you realize definitively in the end what era it is, again, with the fashion joke about, oh, he's wearing all the jeans. Somebody bought all the jeans in town, and they just kept ripping apart his very now like thrifty, trendy, performative male fit. I was dying because I know 4 dudes that dress like that in my workplace in the film industry.
Yeah, I was the one thing that gave away the era to me too. That's earlier on was that his Frogopolis shirt had 1997 on it, and that was
Oh,
a thing that he's like, "Oh, you worked on." So I was like, "Okay, so this is supposed to
my
be set
most proud movie.
around that pocket." So yeah, that was a good bit that I liked a lot too. Yeah, no, I think for me it was just like it got me there enough that I enjoyed it. I just didn't fully connect in with the that beat, and I think that's what really held it back for
Do you
me.
think the main character is too silly in his quest?
No, no, no. Like I enjoyed all that. That was the
Yeah.
part that I enjoyed. It was just that, like, and I think the gap here for me and you is that, like, where I immediately turned to Brandon and was like, "So wait a minute, you probably," because that was the conflict in my head, was that I thought you hated it based on your complete lack of reactions that I noticed while we were watching it. But then I was like, well, but surely Brandon relates to the concept of doing everything it takes for your job,
Make a movie.
even if it means that you have to watch or work all day for 20 hours and show up to the monkey late and then hate the monkey and then crash it. No, I'm kidding. Well, I'm not kidding.
We
But-
made it 18 episodes mentioning them.
I know. I had to set the counter. We got to give me a counter for
Yeah,
that.
days the
But yes, I immediately turned to Brandon and was like, I'm sure that he will relate to this. And he did. And I think liked it more because of that. But as an experience, I still liked it too. And this was our earliest movie of the day. Like we kicked off and we were done by like 8:30. So we started, this was like 11 and early, but like relatively to sit, that
for
was
the unemployed.
for
That's an
4
early day.
movies in a row. And I was still really enjoyed it, and I again was very impressed with it. They mentioned Hundreds of Beavers, and if anyone who's watching this has seen that, I would recommend that movie. It's not as, I would say, consistently funny as I thought Hundreds of Beaver was, which is again very more slapstick and absurdist, but this one's still in that ballpark. It is just a little bit more grounded overall in terms of like characters and stuff like that visually. But again, like I liked the way it looked a lot, and I was really happy because I was worried. Yeah, I was like, oh, black and white, Brandon's gonna not be enjoying this near as much as he should, but he did, and it was a great start for us. And then we went to see
Bagworm. Now, to give a little bit more structure to these rants, uh, and because we also don't want to spoil anything, the synopsis for Bagworm is: after a sexually frustrated hammer salesman steps on a rusty nail, he struggles to determine whether the world's sudden and violent turn against him is real or the result of an infection consuming his body and mind. Shay read that synopsis and said, "Bro, you're gonna like this. I don't know much about it, but we gotta take to see this." So
It was about a dude crashing out.
a dude crashing out, and
I always think of Brandon when I think of dudes crashing out.
I think another review said a middle-aged doomer or something, and you're like,
Yeah.
ah, dude,
I think what I think it might have been another
Yeah.
movie that I was like, oh, this would be perfect for Brandon to watch.
but yeah, this movie again, keep going on my double speak about vibes. Bad vibes movie, and I love that. Like a movie like Good Time, where it's just like watching a seedy character try to get his stuff together and just failing uphill, basically, or failing downhill in this case. Really good. The short they played ahead of this too is called Vomit, and I really like that. And when they opened these films, what a perfect pairing. And sure enough, after that first 15-minute like short film, I was like, oh, nice. And then surely enough, Bagworm was, as promised, a very gritty time. I want to say the thing I like most about this. There's a lot that like I don't think worked or landed for me, but what I did like most about this, without giving anything away, the set design in this and the world that this character lives in is top notch and gross. He spends a lot of time living in what looks like a burned down house. I don't know if I ever explained it.
Well, this
hinted
is.
at.
I was actually going to nitpick the synopsis of this because it wasn't super evident to me that this guy was thriving prior to the events.
No,
of this film.
it seems like
Given
it's
the
been-
fact that yes, when we get to his house, it's like a burnt down but still lived in.
Yeah, like
home.
the lamp next to him sitting in his one armchair soaked in diarrhea is like melted on the wall basically. The sets
Yeah.
that they must have built for this, I was like all in on. I thought this was just like a great way to show just a guy the worst part of his life. Like if he's in a seedy motel, would it be way less effective than this absolute nightmare fuel place? Like if you're a hypochondriac and you watch this, you might have to go to like a psych ward after. I thought this was a deliciously gross film, and the body horror in it was good for what was shown, and
There was a few like gnarly, like wow,
Yeah, a lot of
like,
big
moments like
reactions.
that. I think I'm overall a little bit more in the middle on this. Like again, not mid in the basic sense. It was more of a mixed bag, and I think for me, the thing I liked about it most, without question, was the lead performance. And
he carries the movie.
Peter Falls is the main actor in the film, and like yes, the whole thing like relies on him. I would say like similar to you, the set and the makeup effects and like his visual evolution throughout the
yeah.
film, I'll say. And they'll probably like I mean they kind of used it in the poster we saw there, and it'll be in promotional
Bloodshot
stuff, I'd imagine.
eyes, chapped
So,
lips,
Yeah,
stuffy nose.
super gnarly as that was going. It just
there
like
are scenes of this because he's getting sicker as the movie progresses. After
people were groaning at the chugging of NyQuil. Like
he
was
chugs
throwing
NyQuil
so
while
much-
chain smoking, sweating, and snot dripping out of his
and,
nose.
like that was making people like, oh, like just have been
Yeah.
chugging NyQuil, and but it's the sheer amount of it that is really when you're like,
Yeah.
oh, the first time you're like, oh, that was aggressive, and then when he keeps going, you're like, oh, and it just becomes like so much worse.
Yeah,
But-
I definitely think like because like this is the film I was trying to compare to Miasma earlier, where narratively I don't think it like kind of goes anywhere that I
Yeah.
found really rewarding, but the journey I was on with this character and how downbeat this guy was, maybe like Miasma, where the stakes are like different. In this case, this guy's whole life is falling apart so rapidly that it felt like you were watching this super slippery slope ride, and I just, even though again, like I too, like Miasma, was like, oh, I don't know where they went with this, like what the point was, and that's like a great sign to say I didn't get it. I don't know what the point of the movie was, but I did like what I was getting from it, which was it was kind of comparing, I would say, guys in their 30s who are watching their friends move on with their lives, and well, he's literally falling apart, and like anybody normally I think would have been like, bro, are you okay? As he looks completely disheveled, would have been like, do go to the hospital, but all of his friends are so self-absorbed, being like, oh yeah, we have a baby on the way. Like, and meanwhile, he's living in a burned down house, driving a broke down Hyundai Accent.
Yeah.
Fungal, gross shit happening everywhere. It's just like I really thought like the point of the movie to me at least was this is a guy who couldn't move on after a breakup or after something worse, hinting at the burned down house, like whatever. And he was stuck in a pattern that was very negative and he couldn't get out of it, get out of his own way while he was watching all of his friends around him kind of continue on without him. And I think the ending of the movie, without giving anything away, that is the closest thing you get to like a lesson learned, but it's not super black and white about it. There really isn't much of a redemption or a payoff. It is very much just like watch this guy's life go really downhill, and I really enjoyed that. But I do feel like without giving anything away, I'm not sure if I fully understood it, but I liked what I got out of it.
Well, I think, yeah, that's sort of the way, maybe a simpler way to put it is for me was like, it felt like we ended where we started effectively,
Effectively,
but not in like, oh, he went on this epic thing and just kind of like, to me, like, again, it wasn't clear that he was thriving before the events of the film.
yeah.
He clearly, like, things get dramatically shittier, in throughout the movie.
The definition of bad to worse.
Yeah, exactly.
Every scene, every beat is like you go from here to here. Miasma stays like here, and it kind of goes all the way around. But it never goes to the point of like, oh my God, how does this person make it out? You know, like it.
And then like I remember I read reviews about like men are so crazy because like there's no way anyone would actually go this long without getting medical treatment. And I know through personal experience that's not my own directly. And if I mention him on the podcast ever, he'd kill me. But anyone that knows me probably knows what I'm referring to.
Are you talking about me?
No.
Oh, this is my
Yeah, I would have just pointed at you.
my girlfriend describes me as this all the time. Like,
Well, no, but like to this level, dude, I'll tell you after. I guess
I got a
it's
lump
not
on my shoulder
immediately-
here. I haven't checked that out by a doctor.
I would have done like oh, if anyone knows if it was actually Brandon. It's not Brandon.
Somebody worse than me is a big deal. My girlfriend would agree with that synopsis of a man that doesn't.
But yeah, no, I thought that was a part that was like believable. And like
Yeah.
again, I like you, the whole I found as the movie was clearly winding down, or like, I'm like, okay, we're definitely in the third act as things
Yeah.
going. I found my brain being like, I'm like trying to now start bringing the threads together in my
How are
head,
you going to land this
and I
plane?
wasn't connecting them, and they
Yeah.
weren't really working because the movie itself, I think, puts us in a spot where again, at least, yeah, like Brandon said, maybe we're just trying not to sound dumb. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, it didn't really land for me in an effective way, and I didn't really get it in terms of like what they were really going for deep down. And then I don't know if you want to say anything because I have a sick transition.
What I would say too is like the watch of this movie, I was so in on the gross factor, the terrible times, but then after the movie ended and I was trying to extrapolate like what was this about, what was I taking away from this other than maybe some of the subtle messaging about like being stuck in your own way or whatever.
Yeah.
There were scenes that I liked watching and thought were like great funny beats and bits. But then at the end, I'm like, oh yeah, what was the point of that? If that like almost not like a dangling thread, but like if not spoiling anything, but it's like if you discuss like the littering scene, guy grabs the litter, throws it over the fence, so the guy littered, waited an entire day to put it over his fence. It wasn't like a drive by. It's like, was that going somewhere? Is that proving something other than just showing us
Well, in
that?
that cutaway again that you reminded me
the-
of.
the
Well,
guy-
don't say
There's a
anything.
car accident in this that is very mild. It's a great scene and good character development for our protagonist, showing how down on his luck he is. But they follow that scene further away from our character, and it gave me more questions than answers, and it didn't really.
And I
tie in.
totally gapped. Like when
forgot that
Brandon
happened.
brought it up afterwards, I was like, "What?" And then I'm like, "Oh, right."
Yeah.
So like it was one of those where I don't know, like we were only at our second one. If like we watched this and it was like our fourth movie of the day,
we
and I'm
just
like,
from a
did
pride.
we? Yeah, like
Yeah.
we. But I felt like that was arguably when our like peak energies were coming in. And
I would
then-
watch this again to see if I just wasn't getting
Yeah.
it. There's some movies like let's say Miasma where I know I won't get it a second time around, but this I feel like I was so close to fully getting it and enjoying the ride that I would go back on the ride to see if maybe there was a through line there that I missed, or like even just a shot that was quick. I think the pacing, with the exception of what you're talking about, where when the end was coming,
Yeah, by the end, I'm like,
you were trying to figure out where they're going to land the plane, and I was like, yeah, how are they? Because this ride has been so up and down all over the place and like crazy that it's like to end this anyway, other than him like it was all a dream, which it's not. That's not a spoiler. I was wondering like where do they go with this, because it ramps up the tension pretty well throughout. Like reminded me tonally similarly to what was it? Well, Good Times I said, but what was the one we saw last year? With the dollar sign in it.
Oh, positions.
Positions, yeah, where there was like a crypto addict who kept gambling his life, putting everything he had, and like ramping up the tension. Adriana said it best last year, and I always think of her quote when she said, "I love somebody ruin it. Well, it's hard to watch somebody ruin their life, making the worst choices every time for an hour and a half straight." And this movie is exactly like that. So, if you're like me and you love it, I wouldn't say doomer, but a masochist for sure, sadomasochist maybe. I absolutely got a blast out of this, and I would watch it again because I really don't think I was able to grasp everything, or maybe there was a bit of a logic gap in some of the scenes, but that's a nitpick. I really found this one great. I don't know if I loved it. I would say on a heart meter, a very strong like.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm more of a half full heart on this one. I just like, yeah, for that mix of it, like there were parts of it that I really liked. I just ultimately didn't feel like it added up to anything,
Poignant.
yeah, poignant or even all that honestly interesting. It was a situation to me where the journey was better than the destination, but I don't know that I would even want to like revisit it just for the journey in the same way I've rewatched Good Time, Uncut Gems, like these
Yeah.
kinds of things. Like I wouldn't really feel compelled to
Plus the
revisit
shock
that.
value to show somebody that for the first time, I feel like is half the fun. If you know
Yeah.
how messed up it is, you love to show like your partner or a friend who's like, "Oh, I love Good Time." You're like, then you'll love this. Like,
And honestly, like maybe if we stuck around for the Q&A, we could have got more clarity, but we couldn't
whoa,
because we had to rush over to see The Fox,
the
our
Fox.
third movie on the closing day of Fantasia. This was one of for sure the top three. I'm gonna finagle my order still, I think, but this was one of my favorite movies of the festival this year. Australian comedy. Everyone's saying dark comedy. I find that like overused. I wouldn't say it's like a dark
Dark subject
comedy.
material, but a light comedy.
Yeah, like it's not like 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 upsetting.
Yeah.
Like yeah, I've seen dark comedy. I'm like, oh shit, like you're edgy,
I
sensitive.
think if you're really
It's not
sensitive
really like
and you
that.
take things super literally, like if you
Yeah,
were hung up on Bear being the bad guy in Obsession more than the actual story, then you might find this really upsetting. But I think if you enjoyed the narrative beats in Obsession, then you might find this movie to be much lighter. Like as
now
far
available
as
on 4K and Blu-ray, where you can buy your physical media everywhere.
But yeah, no. To give some of the plot away based on the synopsis, not to spoil anything, it's about a couple who gets a guy proposes, Jai Courtney, and
Good. By the way, Jai Courtney finally.
yeah,
Everyone likes to bag on Jai Courtney. He was
this
very good at
this is my realm, and this might be a mild spoiler, but there is nudity in this movie, but you do not get to see Jai Courtney hang
Thank
dong
God we
full
have a
frontal.
senior nudity course.
I will say I'm very happy that there is the amount of nudity that's in this. It adds a lot of comedy and levity to it.
Do you want to read just the actual synopsis?
An affable hunter encounters a shape-shifting fox who offers him an opportunity to transform his partner into the perfect woman, and in doing so, take control of the natural world. And so again, when this was presented to us, the host said that this is kind of like Obsession. You'll be obsessed with it. And I was kind of like, oh, that's a really big claim. And then I understand now because like the narrative beat that, and I think I already said the part, but basically he proposes to his girlfriend and it's met with some mixed feelings. And instead of facing those feelings, he takes this deal of a shape-shifting fox. The fox effectively serves a little bit like the one with Willow. And now he gets
The Temptress.
the temptress, the perfect partner, but she's not quite all there. And then the movie explores that in a different way than Obsession, which I appreciated.
Mhm.
And then it gets kind of cheeky and funny, even though again it's kind of dark subject matter, especially the way that he converts her. It's not as easy as snapping one with Willow.
Yeah.
So I won't give that away, but that is again like just great beats. And every time they reference it, and the more zany it gets, the more aware people are that what's gone on has gone on. It goes off the rails in a not all that so random kind of way, which I appreciate because sometimes I find in some movies, especially Fantasia, something that is so dramatic and crazy becomes like a little bit too much of an easy joke. And here I felt like it was dark and then it was funny and then it was just like a common joke that kept coming back. And the way they reincorporate and do callbacks to it just really worked.
Yeah, I think for me, this was on the higher end of the like scale. Like, I really enjoyed our screening of this, even though we barely got in and we're like right at the very front, far left.
Yeah.
So we were on a bit of an
We
angle
had
to watch.
that IMAX Giga Chad meme a bit with the screen was like a diagonal square for
It was
us.
a little distorted, but
But good time.
yeah, I think it was a lot of fun. And yeah, it was, I think, what did we say? Was it like Obsession meets the World's End or whatever from
Yeah,
Edgar Wright a little bit to
because it was a
give you
bit
sense?
campy, even like the way that they show the shape-shifting fox.
Oh, like, well, so the it was very like a practical like puppet, like clearly it was a puppet, I think, and it
Yeah.
was like, but it was a real fox, and like they lean into the bit where the audience, like we all did that preemptive laugh because it like he's talking to a fox, and then he just. What are you talking about? Like he just replies to it directly,
Yeah.
as if like he's not at all really
And there
that
are multiple
thrown.
bits like that, and a lot of people
Yeah.
in the movie don't break character and they engage with the talking animal.
And play it very like
Yeah.
straight. And I thought that was like the best way. And one of the things, I think this was before you got here. We went to the Matt Johnson panel, and he said one of the worst things a movie can do is be inauthentic to itself.
Right.
And I was like, oh my God, it's so validating to hear an actual filmmaker say, validate my critique of Abigail. All these years later. But this movie.
6 days without mentioning
6
Abigail.
days without mentioning
Yeah.
But like this movie doesn't ever depart. Like there's not that moment, like not even one. And now I'm like trying to find myself like, oh, there's only one beat where the movie comes to a complete halt so they can get some serious beat in there. Like every serious character note flows within the story and never departs the sort of set tone that the movie creates for itself because of the sort of effortless blend of straight but unserious.
Yeah.
It allows them to sort of deliver straight conversation, but it still sort of feels absurd, and they call that out, and it just works, and the movie never departs from that ever. And I was like, that once again feels so refreshing. And so just for this movie to be like unabashedly unashamed about what it was and to lean into that for like the good runtime, it didn't really overstay. Honestly, there was like little notes after that I won't mention now because they would be spoilers, but like little details around that like I really enjoyed that were like little visual Easter eggs and things like that I thought were
Definitely
a lot
wasn't
of fun.
a horror movie either. I think teeing us up saying it's like
No.
Obsession. Obsession has funny moments, but it is a very unsettling movie.
Yeah.
Where this movie, I'd say it's a funny drama with kind of absurd plot devices, and it flows really well because even like without giving away the actual drama in this movie, stuff that would be played dead straight and like a real drama, it's always delivered with this like comedic sense, like
It's like if Obsession like was going for a comedic bit
yes,
more than it was going for the tension and dread and horror,
Yeah.
scary parts. This one's sort of in that part, but just like let's make this funnier. And so again, there is like, as Brandon alluded to in our creative, our passionate disagreements on Obsession.
Bear was the villain. I'm just saying, if that was your only takeaway, you got to appreciate cinema.
but like there are differences obviously in the whole setup and everything that avoid the more serious implications, I guess, that can come out of Obsession versus this. Again, it all occupies that same tone, and so like again, we can't elaborate because it gives it away.
Spoiler discussion on this movie would go.
Yeah, I feel like this would be one I would be willing to cover when it comes out more completely, because I think it was a lot of fun. So if you're hearing this and you're put this on your list for when it comes out, I definitely think you will enjoy it.
I would say you said you're on the high end of like. I would say I'm on the low end of love. I would give this like a 4 out of 5 on Letterboxd.
Bro, which killed me. You don't react at all at a movie. Jesus Christ, dude. Like you like literally like we were both like, again, we were sitting like this basically so we could watch the film.
Yeah.
But that was like you don't react at all. Like
It's
I could
internalizing
tell
it all. but to be fair, the reason why is because like I would recommend this
Internalize it.
to like my mother. You know what I mean? Like it was
Yeah.
funny enough, slapstick enough, but it was also like a great thing. It's still it tackles a lot of like what I call like boomer comedy you see on Comedy Central of like
Oh
my
God.
old ball and chain wife, huh? And like it does it in a fun, different
Yeah.
way. So like I think it's universally likable the way that Obsession was, without again the gritty horror elements that make it harder to recommend to your mother. Let's say
Yeah.
this is definitely just more of like a bit slapstick at times, a bit silly, but it's a fun drama with characters that are kind of outlandish. Like in their refusal to deal with their problems, they create new ones, which again, very similar to Bear Obsession. So yeah, I would give it a big recommend. And I loved watching this. I'd watch it again with somebody I care about just to get their reaction. So that's how much I.
Well, yeah, because you fucking gave so many reactions. I watched it with someone I cared about, and I couldn't tell if the dude hated the thing or what while we're watching. You're so boring. Um, you being like you withholding anything kills me, but I guess it's purely because you don't emote. You just talk.
Well,
And we
because the
can't talk. We can't talk in the theater.
yeah, 'cause the alternative is he's watching it, he's chuckling a little bit, and I'm like, bro, that's so fucking funny.
Well, no, there's the alternative, which I do, which is like, ha ha ha, ha, and I look over, and you're just like. So, but speaking of looking up at the screen like this, we closed out with Freaks 2 or Part 2. I don't know what exactly they're going to call it because they said different. And then, but anyway, I think right now it's called Freaks Part 2.
Le Freak Deuxième.
Well, no, you got to, again, it's right behind you. Deuxième Partie. But so I think the fact that, well, none of us, we should say, we both watched Freaks Part 1 to kick off our weekend together because neither of us had saw Freaks Part, well, he might have. We still haven't figured that
I
out
think I
yet.
took too much NyQuil one time, and I imagined
And
the whole
peak
movie.
of the pandemic.
Yeah, it was a pandemic streaming watch, and I think I fell asleep during it because I think I literally had the virus, and then I completely K-hole memory locked this out. So we were watching it, and I'm like, this is so familiar.
It's like, I swear I've seen this.
But to get at that too, I definitely fell asleep before the halfway mark. And there are things in the first movie I was guessing or calling out as they're happening. You did the same.
Yeah, we both did like separately. And it was like, ah.
And then seeing the second movie, that was probably the real only negative criticism was like, it was a well done movie. It was enjoyable for the most part, but you could see stuff coming like a mile away,
Yeah.
which ultimately hurt the pacing.
Yeah, I think for part one, I'll to summarize all of my thoughts. I liked part two slightly more than I liked part one, but they're both sort of occupying that varying ends of the mid again on the scale. for
Almost
me.
different genres, because I think the strengths of Freaks 1 is, to summarize that, it's like a little girl's trapped in a house with a dad who's very paranoid, and you don't really.
Can't go outside.
Yeah.
It's terrible. It's so dangerous.
It rides this line of like a
And
thriller.
ironically, Ice Cream Man.
Yeah, it rides this line of like maybe an abusive dad, a thriller element to like, do you know if he's real or not? There's some strange things happening in this house. Great set deck for that house because most of the movie takes place in it. But spoiler for Freaks 1, not 2, but 1, you find out that freaks are basically like X-Men level mutants that every generation gets stronger. They bleed from their eyes. That's how the government can tell if they're freaks. And the dad wasn't an abusive weirdo. He was actually a freak whose ability was to slow down time. So he grew his daughter in this house for 7 years by pausing the world after the tragic capturing of his wife. Months go by, 7 years in this house. That's why he's always tired, not because he's day drunk, like I thought when I watched it the first time. And at the end of the movie,
Possibly second time.
yeah, exactly, or possibly second time. But at the end of the movie, it ramps it up to 11. Freaks are real. The government's after them. Everything the dad said about like society will gun you down the street if you leave the house, which sounds like a lunatic take. But in the context, that's revealed to be true. That yes, they're being hunted. The mutants of this world are a threat. There's a big blow up in Dallas. Which was revealed that it's like it was actually the government trying to bomb all the freaks, but they said the freaks bombed the city with their abilities. It's a little convoluted, but the ending of that movie sets it up with getting the wife out of Freak's jail. She comes, rescues the daughter from a big raid. The dad passes, and they fly up superhero style into the atmosphere, leaving it open-ended for Freaks 2. So we pick up in Freaks 2, and it's the mom and daughter character on the run. And my biggest wonder after Freaks 1 was,
Well, there's again the flashback.
They do a flashback,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
I'm not sure how much of it
Sets
will,
up the whole. Yeah, yeah. We won't give any of
but
that away, but it's a flashback that feeds into the rest.
my big concern was when they opened the world right up at the end of Freaks 1.
Mhm.
I was like, are we entering like MCU Freaks expanded universe here where the mom is just booming around, flying around, the daughter's using her telekinesis like Charles Xavier and the X-Men? How hardcore are we going with it? And I think Freaks 2 picks us up in a place where they have to backfill a little bit at the start of the movie to give us context for the rest of the movie, which isn't my favorite way to approach a
No.
sequel. But it isn't like the power scalings now because it does blow it out of the water at the end of the first movie. It's still kind of like the abilities are real. There's no more mysticism as to like, can you
Yeah,
trust
we
this
know the
character?
world and
The
all that.
world's real. So the tone shift from like paranoia thriller locked in a house with a supernatural twist, like superpowered humans exist, is now just straight up superhumans are on the run. So it does feel a little bit more what we've already seen in so much other media of like superheroes are exiled from society.
Well, and it was so much like parts one still. And I almost wish that it did open up way more because this very much felt like the exact same beats, except
It's a
let me
road trip.
outside. It's like, let me go hang out with these people. Like,
I'm older now. I want
so it
friends.
was all the same school of thing, even though it was like now we were confined to a house and now we're confined to this car, basically. So it's like I felt it was all very repetitive of those same themes. And then, like, once again, there's another new character in this film that's basically going through the same thing as the original character in
locked
part
in a
one.
house.
So it's like it just like it was more repetitive that way, and like obviously the like allegories you could make in comparisons to like real world things, both
Helicopter
past and
parents,
present.
bigotry.
Yeah, so like that's all there, and I would say the reason I like the second one more was that I thought the effects work for the most part was a lot better.
The practical stuff too. People were popping.
Yeah. There was there was more like I feel like there was much less of like I don't even really remember the first like we just
First
saw
one
it
was like stabbings and bullet wounds. Like
yeah, like it was like I mean there was like stuff like that, but this one like whoop they dial that up and almost like right away.
yeah,
Which I was like, oh okay, like so I was a little more on board for that.
the stakes feel a little higher because half the movie isn't spent like in a house making you doubt that the world's bad. We immediately know. We immediately see like the opening. Well, yeah, both opening scenes, the flashback and where they're at, without giving it away, are gruesome. Like what involves. Well, yeah, but yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, we don't want to spoil because literally no one else can see these for however long.
Yeah.
So I do think this has some level of distribution because there was something from Paramount on this. So if I think it'll be out there for sure. But yeah, but overall, I will say despise the ending of this tremendously. It very much felt like a
MCU.
yeah, like MCU, like this movie, like it ended, but it didn't. Like it's more of a
Chloe will return in the next
yeah. They might as well have just thrown that up.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it was. I didn't love that. I'm not super attached to this at all. Like and if there's a very like vocal, excitable fan base for this movie, I don't count myself as one of them. But like they're solid enough. Like
decent performances and like effects and like the story was good. I definitely felt like they could have tightened up some stuff or made it a little bit more vague. Like the first movie, the strength was
there's
not knowing who to believe, and here it's very black and white. And anytime there's a level of mystery, I think you're
immediately know. There's no
the whole audience knew, and I know this because Fantasia reacts so well to everything. Like even the mildest plot twist that was a little bit creative, you would hear at least 10 of 200 people go, "Oh!" And in this fully packed theater, when there's a big reveal, not a word. It was all kind of like, oh, okay. So now that that's on the table, how long to the end? It was just like you could see it coming a mile away, and like I don't know how they could have rewritten that or changed it.
It's so funny to me at the same festival where we saw It Ends last year and that got a bit loud pop for the ending. And I was like, are you all stupid? And then earlier this year when Charles was here, there was that other one, We're Nothing at All or whatever, where there was like a reveal, I guess. And I'm like, we've known this for an hour and a half. So and that's still got a reaction. So when we're here saying there's twists in this movie that are so telegraphed, that like I almost don't even like I feel the reason I said twist is because it's so obvious that that's what it is, that it got zero crowd reaction when those things were confirmed. Like there wasn't a single, and like it was the closing film, it was basically sold out, and I didn't see it hear a single
We joke
oh
we joke about
nothing.
media literacy a lot, and it was so telegraphed to anybody that sees more than like two movies a year, anybody that has read a book one time, anybody that knows general story structure really does see this third act reveal coming a mile away, as they set up a character to be a main character, to be related to maybe the flashback you see at the very start of the movie, for example. Even that maybe sounds like a spoiler, but I think if you've seen any movie and you know there's a big flashback,
Yeah.
it's going to pay itself forward. That's just narrative storytelling. um, Again, there's not a ton of faults of the movie, really. It's just more so I feel like the story they maybe
It's at a script level, I
yeah,
think,
they
is
they
the
chose a
problem.
story that I think was a little cliche, and there's elements in this I like. Like there's a character whose ability is to fabricate stuff out of thin air, and the way he does that is really
Hmm.
interesting. It felt a little bit like The Boys, where it's like, all these
Hmm.
kids with superpowers. Some of them are less fortunate than others. Like there's a character in The Boys that like can open up a portal in his asshole, so he can do an egger really good. And it's like what he uses a superpower, but has crazy ramifications if you're trying to like sneak people into buildings or like hide contraband. So he might have a use, but you know what I mean? So I like the idea of like with all this superhero media we got, Freaks is just another genre giving us superhero media, but at the same time, it didn't set itself apart, especially when tonally the ending is like this optimistic kind of like where are they going to go from here, which is one of the negatives from the first movie of like it really felt like they were going to ramp up to like an X-Men style team up, and this movie definitely gives you that vibe without giving away any of the outcome of it. The future of the Freeze franchise feels like there's supposed to be one. It didn't feel like the story's over, and sometimes that can be frustrating when it's not super established and you didn't find the ride to be as like thrilling. It was just kind of like A to B in the plot, and whatever was needed, they got through some sort of supernatural ability or convenience. Like they're in Washington for most of this movie, but one of the antagonists says that they were in Dallas when the Freaks attacked. But then their kids also went to the summer camp in Washington on the North Pacific Northwest, even though they were in Dallas, which is like the South. And it's just
What,
kind of
people
like,
can't drive from Dallas
I guess if you want to drive like 18
to
hours to
Seattle
take
or
your kid to summer camp,
send them on a plane?
I get to summer camp. I guess so.
Why not, dude? You can afford it.
Well, they also owned a house out there, but why was she stationed in Dallas? Anyways, my point is like there's just some gaps where I don't think they planned for Freaks to be a franchise, but it ended on this like cliffhanger note that was like kind of a fun pop at the end of the first one, and this one it's ending on this very franchise feeling, and it's like I don't think I got enough out of this to make me want to go, oh, I can't wait for part three. So that's
I feel kind of bad saying it because it's like, but it is sort of like an amateur production. Like when we watched the first one, it felt like, well, like we said, it was like a CW show visually, and like I
but
think
narratively at least it was strong.
it was stronger than that,
Yeah.
but it still was not like the thing I was comparing the first one to was 10 Cloverfield Lane.
Cloverfield Lane, yeah.
And so, which again, I hated, back to spoiling things at the end of like just in your title, like the whole thing being undone by that fact, pissed me off. But even still, I was still more gripped by the mystery and like the intrigue of that whole situation. And this one, like, I never really bought into the mystery. I never really gave a shit about the outside world, like, aspect of it. But, like, to me, I guess it benefited from that because it was technically, it's like Split.
Yeah.
It's
The
technically a
less you know, the more
superhero
enjoyable it
movie,
is. Yeah.
but it isn't.
Yeah.
And then like where that thing fell apart is same thing with Unbreakable. Actually, those two movies are great in isolation because they're superhero movies that aren't really superhero movies, and ironically it kind of fell apart in Glass, where then it kind of feels like that's a superhero movie and it didn't work. And I feel like this feels like superhero movies, maybe with like a more, like, there's more potential here, I feel like, and that's why I feel like I'm actually like more mid on them, is that like the setup here, there's like a revenge angle for this whole movie, basically is the thrust for a lot of this stuff, and like this seclusion in the last one. So those movies like narratively are just more intriguing, but then once you get into this, like, oh, we all have superpowers, it just sort of limits you when that becomes the known thing on what you can do. And because you're in a world basically where there are superheroes, so then you're kind of confined. Well, we need action, we need all these beats, and then it just sort of like falls
I
flat
think
for
even
me.
with the first movie, I always like retroactively, I'm like, oh, actually, I think I liked it more because of that mystery at the start of it.
Mhm,
But it's the same problem with the second movie of like the world feels incredibly small despite spanning like the entire continental U.S. It feels like.
mhm.
Um,
Which, by the way, is like not odd, I guess, because it's probably for the political allegory reasons. But like, this is a Canadian production.
yeah,
But yes, it
there's
is like
some
it's in
American
yeah, it's like all in
controversy
America
vibes.
kind of stuff.
But that's kind of thing is like like in the last movie, the girl who's stuck in the house eventually sneaks out and realizes the world isn't so bad, and the creepy ice cream man is a creepy ice cream man. So for at least 20 more minutes, you're like, wow, like this is what her dad was warning her about. And so like there's that will they won't they or that vibe of paranoia that still stays up. But when the reveal in the first movie, which has been out for like 6 years now, so I don't feel bad spoiling this,
No.
um, that's her grandfather and all this weird vibes and all this weird stuff is him trying to figure out the mystery. It's like, okay, well, that kind of works, but it does feel oddly convenient to an aspect to the point where like the main characters reveal that he's been slowing down time
Mhm.
and all this other weird stuff. It's like, okay, well, at least it's so weird and abstract that this kind of makes like some sort of sense. But I think here, when the world feels more fleshed out and the one person you're looking for is the one person that relates heavily to the plot and the mystery, and it's so telegraphed, never did I think watching the first 30 minutes of Freaks 1 that we were going to get crazy answers. I knew there would be a crazy explanation or twist, and there was, that they're super powered. Where this is like the mystery was so veiled behind the thinnest curtain that it's like you see it, and then like I think ultimately that just made the pacing tougher because you just wanted them to get past the mystery
Mhm.
and flesh out the dramatic story, which I think was actually somewhat compelling. Like I think the
Well,
performances were good.
that's what I think I latched on to is like I didn't really like the mystery didn't entice me in the first one, and I felt bored through that. And then this one, yes, it has those really thin setups, but there was more propulsion in the
Yeah,
main plot. That was almost like the B plot. Uh,
more action
and
too.
treated honestly like that because like the
Yeah,
whole which it was like a just a weird bit, and of course it comes all back around. But I wish I was like a little more enthusiastic about this. But I think the conclusion of all of this is that Shay is just over superhero shit, period. So
hey, I love superhero slop, and it unfortunately reminded me of mediocre stuff when I felt like they had opportunities to go further and bigger. But also, to be fair, it is Canadian production; it is pretty low budget. I
yeah,
almost
for
feel like
what it is, it punches above its weight.
it
That's
does,
another bit
yeah.
I'll say.
And
Like
I would say like it almost could, and he takes this as a huge insult, but I mean this earnestly. I think it could have been like an 8 episode miniseries or streaming show, parts 1 and 2, maybe.
I only take it as an insult if I think it's like, no, it's a great movie. No, I do think like honestly,
Like
this
a two
feels
episode
like
mystery, a 2 episode at the summer camp, a two
I wouldn't
episode
be
with the
stunned if
villain.
this falls not into a third movie, but like a TV
Yeah,
show.
it does.
Like,
It does feel like it needs to wrap up more conclusively with how they end this last one. And
no, dude, I see like at least 3 spin-off series.
well, that's in phase
Yes.
one. We got to get to phase two.
Welcome to the Freak CU,
The
bro.
Paramount equivalent
Yeah.
to Disney owning it is going to be the free,
Oh God, don't say that.
the FCU, the free cinema.
It could happen. I mean, make bank guys.
Often mixed
make
up with the
more stuff.
UFC, you know.
I will, like I said, I think technically, like, it's just more of on a script level. I feel like these could be a little bit better. I was impressed more. I will say, I'm impressed more visually for a lot of those effects. I don't know. They did say, like, they finished it 5 days before we watched it.
True, yeah.
But whoever the fuck was wiping Vaseline on the lens for half of these shots, don't let that guy back on set. That drove me fucking crazy because it was not consistent. It was clearly not like intentionally stylized for like particular beats, and it made scenes with like any light source whatsoever look blown out like shit and washed out and like hazy, and like to the point it was like obstructing the visual of characters' faces. Yeah, and like but different. Like if it was shot reverse shot on Brandon, he looked super clear, then it would cut to me and it'd be all hazy and like Vaseline,
Even if it was
and
like
it
a
was like,
POV, like if that was the reverse shot over your
yeah,
shoulder, it was still blurred. It wasn't clear because I feel like there maybe even was an attempt early on to make it stylized, like when someone's using a supernatural power or something, maybe. But by the end of it, it felt like it was
but it
thrown in
wasn't
every other.
consistent.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
inconsistent at the end, and that's when I was starting to be like, yeah, was that me? Did I miss a beat? Was that a hallucin? No, that was real. That was yeah, because that I was piecing stuff together. But yeah, that it's funny. It is a nitpick, but I too after was like, oh yeah, I did feel like I couldn't see that one shot because a garden light on the front porch was
Yeah.
like just super like chromatically aberrated and like hard to see
Yeah.
through. And to be fair, I also said the same thing about Black Bag, but that's used very consistently, having that smeared look
And is
and
intentional.
intentional. Where here, I felt like they threw it in once or twice early, and it didn't bug me because I thought it was a part of the effect. But at the end, it was like it felt like every other shot, and I was like, "What? What
Well,
is?"
because the difference between for Black Bag, other than just the intentionality, is that I think the thing that comes with intentionality is the awareness. So even if there was a light causing that, it wouldn't obscure the face unless that was by design for the shot. But so it's like when you're just trying to show me someone say a normal line and they're like, it looks all fucky and like the focus is kind of pulling in and out. It's like,
Well, it was the Pacific Northwest. It could have been very humid or rainy that day. It could have had.
yeah.
It'd been a
Yeah,
rough
and
day.
it just wasn't. Well, it was Canadian. Where did they film it, bro?
Well, it was all filmed in Vancouver, some of the first movie. So,
Yeah,
so then that's why again I was bitching about this earlier. First movie could have been kind of any major city, and they hint at Dallas being was affected by a big attack. And then this movie, Dallas comes up a lot, but they're taking place and characters from Dallas to the Pacific Northwest. Well, and that was like from what I see all the time, like Final Destination. I'm like, so it's just like a back road in Vancouver, and basically this is very similar. It's like very, especially because we saw a Safe Distance, which they are very honest about. And the movie takes place in Vancouver in like the hiking trails and stuff. That was like when we were here, and so much of it, and like we say this all the time, like so many movies that are low budget will take just 30-40% of the movie takes place in the woods because that is
yeah,
the easy light, easy finding
and it can
location
be anywhere.
anywhere, every rural road, every small town, And I get it with like being on the run in small towns, like they worked it in well with the exclusion of being like all these characters from Dallas are suddenly in the Northwest with mansions, houses, 10-year plans to plot against things.
Yeah,
I just felt like, this has got the sequelitis in a bad way of like, well, the production has to switch gears, we switch narrative gears, we have to switch all this around. And it just felt like something they didn't expect in the first movie, because otherwise they would have picked like, oh, when Seattle got bombed, and then
yeah.
this would at least be geographically like, oh yeah, the you know FBI agent or whatever just lived an
I
hour out
can't
of the
believe you
city.
got that deep into this. I was like, I didn't care about any of that. I just didn't get in enough to give a shit. I guess to close this on a note about Canadian film production, because it's the closing of the end of the 30th Fantasia Film Festival. The one note that I thought was really funny that was for a movie we just reviewed earlier in this episode was Camp Miasma. I always thought that Coffee Crisp were Canadian chocolate bars,
Yeah,
that they don't exist in the US.
no,
And there's a ton of candy stuff in Camp Miasma in the movie. And that drove me. I was like, oh, like they have a bunch of coffee crisps, and I thought those were Canadian. And then there's like a random beat later in the film where they're like, well, I'm up in a cabin in the woods in like the Northwest Territories or wherever they said they were. I don't remember, but I'm like, oh, it came back around because like even in that universe, they film these things in Canada. So I enjoyed that beat. And yeah, no, this was a good festival. There was some good movies here.
like 53 countries or something, over 50
Yeah, it
countries
was
submitted films.
109. I want to say it was like 109 features, 220 shorts, and then from
50
like, yeah,
plus
50, I think it
countries.
was 54 countries. So there was a lot going on. By the time you're seeing this, we still have a few more solo reviews coming out of some of the other things that we saw. I think we'll have a little bit more written stuff for the website as well from Adriana, and yeah, more solo content from me coming.
I'll be
On a
driving
bunch.
7 hours back to Toronto, so there won't be any content from me for a little bit. But
Well, I mean, we have this. We have
we
Ice
have
Man.
this.
You'll be involved. But yeah, no, it was, we appreciate Fantasia for giving us the chance to cover these and put some movies on your guys' radar that are definitely worth checking out when they come out. So until then, we will see you at the movies.